Yeah, sure. And I'll take my sunnies off, hey? Can I leave my hat on or should I take it off?
No, you can leave the
Yeah?
hat.
Alright. Just tell me when to go. Everyone good?
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, it is a beautiful day here in Queensland. You can see it's a beautiful day here at Redcliffe. We've had no new cases of COVID-19 either in the community or in quarantine. You will have seen, though, that Queensland Health have added to their contact tracing webpage some tracing locations. That's because of two people who have now tested positive in New South Wales who were escorted from the state by Queensland Police, as well as a truck driver who tested positive in Victoria. So they will appear in the numbers for New South Wales and Victoria respectively. But I think it really just underlines how close this virus is to our border, how close it is to coming here, and just how urgent it is that we get everybody vaccinated. We did more than 8,000 tests in the last 24-hour period, which is a great result as well. Our vaccination effort, though, this weekend has been going gangbusters. Yesterday was an enormous success, particularly at schools. We did more than 13,500 vaccines in schools. Our total number for the day, we think, is 28,869, close to a record. So our record day was in September. We did 31,000 vaccines then, nearly 29,000 yesterday. And as I say, because of the number of locations we're now vaccinating in, those numbers are still being verified. It may well be higher than that, but at least 28,869 vaccines. Thank you to every single one of those 28,000 Queenslanders who came forward and got vaccinated, as well as all of our wonderful health staff who are working through the weekends, through their weekends, to get Queenslanders vaccinated. And it just demonstrates that our current strategy is working. Our current strategy of having more pop-up locations closer to where people are and where they will be is making it convenient for folk, and so lots of people are going and getting vaccinated. And we see next weekend as a great opportunity. We really need to get as many people with their first doses by next weekend so that we can achieve those targets, those second dose targets. And of course, for Brisbane people, next weekend is a special weekend. It's the People's Long Weekend. It's when we delayed the Eka public holiday to this coming Friday, and so lots and lots of people, I'm sure, are making plans to head to the beach for a day or the weekend. I know I'm certainly planning on taking my family to the Gold Coast, and that's why we've partnered with Surf Life Saving Queensland to have pop-up clinics at surf life-saving clubs right across the state, all the way from Port Douglas to Coolangatta. More than 20 new locations where people who are heading to the beach can go and get vaccinated. As I say, we're making it as easy as possible, and the People's Long Weekend, what a better time to go and get vaccinated so you can protect yourself and protect other Queenslanders. We also expect it to be a very busy day at our theme parks, and so there will be pop-up clinics at our theme parks all 3 days of the People's Long Weekend next weekend. So that's at Movie World, Sea World, Dream World, Aussie World, Australia Zoo, and the Currumbin Wildlife Sanctuary. So those theme parks, in addition to the 20 surf life-saving clubs, making it easy to make your plans for next weekend. Plan to go to the beach and plan to get vaccinated while you're there.
Thank you, Deputy Premier. And thanks to Queensland for coming out and getting vaccinated in such great numbers yesterday. Just a reminder that you can still get vaccinated today if you missed out yesterday. All of our mass vaccination centres are open. Please check the website. I'd like to also add my thanks to all of the people who worked so hard yesterday to get those incredible numbers up, apart from the schools who I think reached out through their communities, and it was the schools that made such an enormous difference, but also all of our Queensland health staff, all of the people from our Ready Reserve, the people from the police, and all of the other people who were involved in making that possible. I just want to give a little bit more information about the sites you'll see published on our contact tracing site relate to a couple of carloads of people who came into the far southwest earlier in the week, through Monday through Wednesday, and they subsequently tested positive in New South Wales, and they have returned to New South Wales apart from one gentleman, and I'll leave that to Deputy Commissioner Schleppy to update you on that case. However, what we do know is that they visited some of these far west locations: Nakundra, Dargaminda, Cunnamulla, Quilpie and Charleville. And so if you're out in those communities and if you have even the slightest or vaguest of symptoms, please go and get tested. And I can't stress more strongly that if you're in those communities, please go and get vaccinated, because we know that this virus will come across our borders, and we've got a big long border, so please do go and get vaccinated if you haven't done so yet. There was also a gentleman, a truck driver, who came into Queensland at Gundawindi, who had tested negative prior to crossing the border and tested positive after returning across our border. That truck driver did everything absolutely right and only visited one location, as far as we know, in Rocklea. But we will post that on our website if there are any sites there that you need to be concerned about or any contact tracing required. Please do, though, if you have got any symptoms anywhere in Queensland, go and get tested, because we know that that's one of our strongest measures to get in front of the virus once it does come across. The risk is here and it's going to be coming, so please do get vaccinated for your own sake, for the sake of your community, for the sake of your children and the vulnerable people in our community.
Good morning. Queensland Police continue to check every vehicle crossing the border, and the last 24 hours we've processed over 11,000 vehicles at our border and just over 3,500 persons coming through the airport. We're seeing more and more people trying to take the gamble and cross our border. My message to you is we are checking every vehicle. We're seeing vehicles that have attempted to cross the border on 2 or 3 occasions, and we are taking enforcement action against those people. For anyone who's wanting to have a go at crossing the border, I will tell you there will be no compassion. The rule is quite clear, and we ask you to have the appropriate paperwork so that we can minimise the delays crossing the borders. Thank you.
Any questions? Sorry? Oh, yeah, of course. Please.
Just on behalf of Surf Life Saving Queensland, we're honoured to take part in these pop-up clinics on behalf of the government. Our clubs, as the Deputy Premier said, from Port Douglas all the way down to Coolangatta, will welcome the public. You only have to look behind us here at Redcliffe to see how popular our surf clubs are. They're community-based, and here at Redcliffe in particular, I note this morning they have 270 nippers, which is an amazing achievement, and of course they bring parents down to the beach, so a great opportunity to help our community with these vaccination and pop-up clinics. So I thank the government for their initiative, and we welcome everybody to our clubs.
Look, obviously this is a concern. This is COVID cases that have been likely active in our community. That's why we've listed those sites. Our local health services will of course be making sure that locals have access to vaccines and testing and information. They do a great job, but it underlines how we can't hold this virus out forever. We're doing our very best. Our police and health staff doing their very, very best, but the absolute key here is to go and get vaccinated, because we don't know how much longer we can be this successful.
Do you know what vaccination rates have been like out there in Palaszczuk?
I'm not sure if we have Dargaminda. We can get by the LGA, so yeah, we'll provide that for you.
Has genomic sequencing been done for those
It wouldn't be, no.
No, we don't have that information yet, but we can share that through the media when we get it.
We're very confident of hitting that target statewide, but that will be largely driven by higher figures than that in Brisbane. So our concern is that while the target is an average across the state, and we will hit that average across the state, we are worried that there will be locations that could well be below that number. There will be some below that number, and there could be some well below that number, and that's why this effort is so important. We have to get as many parts of the state as close to that target as we possibly can.
So can places like the Gold Coast be in lockdown over Christmas?
Look, we're doing everything and desperately trying to avoid that. It won't be as a result of the vaccination figure alone, but obviously if there is a location in Queensland where the vaccination rate is low, then the risk of a large outbreak is greater in those locations, and so restrictions remain an option where they are necessary. They will be a last resort, of course.
It's a pretty hard message for tourism, though, isn't it, if you're asking people to come up and visit the Gold Coast at the same time it could be locked down on your holiday?
Look, anything's possible, but what we're saying is that that's the date that our borders will be open. That's the date we'll be welcoming people back to Queensland. I expect the state will be well and truly open for Christmas, and so we'd certainly encourage people to make those plans.
Do you think people are listening to politicians? I know the blitz has been going on now for the last week. Do you think maybe it's time to start listening to help with the ash parties in Queensland?
We do have lots of ambassadors working with us. I'm very conscious of the fact that politicians aren't necessarily the best people to be conveying those messages. So, for example, when I was in Mount Isa last week, they said the one person they thought that could convince people to get vaccinated was AFL legend Charlie Cameron, and so we called the Lions the next day, and Charlie will be in Mount Isa on Tuesday. So I know Jonathan Thurston's been out doing things for us. The team from Deadly Choices have a whole bunch of particularly Indigenous sports people out there spreading the word, and so we really are calling on everyone right across Queensland. I know the Premier was with Wally Lewis not long ago talking about how important it is to get vaccinated, so we are calling on all the star power we can to get that message out.
You said there's confidence in reaching 80%. Do you think we'll reach 90%?
We'll certainly reach 90% eventually. I'm not sure when exactly that will be. Our focus at the moment is that 80% target. We really want to get there for the 17th of December so that we can be open for Christmas.
When will masks go as part of this whole plan?
Well, look, that's not a date that's been set yet. I'm sure there's some discussions within the health team about what thresholds that would be likely. We've had some easing of the mask restrictions in recent weeks, and I'm sure that's welcome.
With 13,000 people still waiting for their border passes to be approved, come the 19th of November, is there going to be a huge backlog of people trying to get in with border passes?
Oh, I'm sure there will be more people coming in at that point in time. The access to home quarantine will be expanded, and so we are certainly working to get people back as quickly as we can, and I'm happy for either police or health if you wanted to.
Yeah, thank you. Look, the border passes are being processed chronologically at the moment, and it's an end-to-end system. So the issue is we can only process the number of border passes to the number of availability in the hotel quarantine and the home quarantine trial. So come December, when the border restrictions may change, the criteria, the home quarantine program being extended, we'd hope that we'd be able to offer that to more people. So.
Will that 72-hour rule still apply?
We'll look at that as we move forward, as we always do. As the health restrictions change and as the entry requirements into Queensland change, we work with our Queensland health colleagues and we'll adapt the system accordingly.
Is there any update on that Gold Coast man who was hospital from a police perspective?
Yeah, we've primarily almost wrapped up our investigation there. We'll just wait now to speak to that gentleman that's in the hospital, and we'll take any action we consider appropriate then. Look, the investigation's still ongoing, but what I will say, we've pretty well completed the investigation now. We're just waiting to speak to the individual. Thank you.
Yeah, the areas that have lower vaccination rates do risk needing to have other restrictions applied, including possibly lockdowns, but we desperately want to avoid that. We desperately want to get every part of the state as close to that 80% target. As I say, we're quite confident we'll reach it across the state, but that will be driven by higher rates here in Brisbane, and so we need to make sure that all regional parts of Queensland are protected. We've been talking to all of our regional mayors during the week about what we can do with them to help get more people vaccinated. We'll be pushing really hard into all of those regional areas because we want to get them as close to the 80% mark as we can.
Will Queensland consider following New South Wales and Victoria and allow Queenslanders coming home from overseas to do so without quarantining from 8% instead of 9%?
Look, at this stage we have outlined our roadmap. It's very clear at what thresholds people can return and when they will and will not be required to home quarantine or quarantine, and we intend to stick to that roadmap.
Do you think there still might be some hesitancy to get the jab?
Well, I think there might be some, but I think now that we've set the time frame, set that deadline, we've seen yesterday that people are coming forward, and so we're just trying to make it as easy and convenient as possible. If you want to be fully protected by that date, you really need to go and get vaccinated this week, get your first dose this week, and so that's why we're pushing as hard as we are, why we'll have so many locations open next weekend for the long weekend down here in Brisbane. Awesome, thanks. Okay.